Well, it is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Well, Al, it was hot to start the week. I believe I saw 102 degrees here in the capital city, but had a quick cool down toward the middle of the week. How do things look as we look to the week ahead when it comes to harvest?
Well, Bryce, we had very warm conditions early in the week. A lot of 100-degree readings across southern Nebraska, and in Lincoln we had two multiple days back-to-back of 100-degree readings, and we peaked out at 103. So that's our second latest that we've seen consecutive 100-degree days. Thankfully, if we look into the future, this should be the last of the heat. We're just getting into the season where it's going to be impossible, very hard to get that 100-degree temperatures unless we have very dry surface conditions. And we're starting to see a slight uptick in precipitation from troughs coming in the western United States. We're seeing more and more of the state getting closer to normal for the month of September, although there is going to be some areas that are going to be below normal, particularly in the eastern part of the state. But we've seen some respectable moisture starting to appear in portions of central, south central, and southwest Nebraska from previous storms and this latest event that just moved through the state. So as we look at the upper air models as we go through this next week, the first thing I'll draw your attention to is that storm system that brought the precipitation this week is now basically up in northern Minnesota, will move to the Great Lakes and intensify. So we'll see some renewed cooling as the cold front itself pushes through the state. Nothing in the way of any significant moisture. That should remain to our north and our northeast. So as we go into tomorrow, we'll see that ridge starts to build to the west. The trough deepens over the Great Lakes. That brings in a northwest and northerly flow in eastern Nebraska from the jet stream, and that will keep our conditions, our temperatures basically locked in the upper 60s across the northeast to around the mid 70s across the south portions of the state. As we go into the day on Sunday, we'll see that ridge building up a little bit farther. The trough itself digs a little bit deeper, so we're going to be pretty consistent in temperature across eastern Nebraska, slightly warmer across western Nebraska, with nothing in the way of any significant moisture. Now, as we go into the day on Monday, we will see a little trough that is starting to get itself going out in portions of Wyoming, and that is expected to start to move toward the east. And the discrepancies in the models the last couple of days has been that either this trough quickly moves east or it digs deeper. So if this thing moves east, we're going to see temperatures that are going to be pretty consistent, back in the 70s, possibly warming up a little bit in western Nebraska up toward the 80 to 85 degree range in the southwestern part of the state especially. And as we go into the day on Wednesday, we see that energy from today's model showing it sliding across southern Nebraska, so we may see a little bit of light precipitation. If this trough again intensifies, then we'll see a little bit more widespread precipitation. And here is Hurricane Hermine. And the models are all over the place with this. So if this does come up to the northwest, we're going to see a little bit more moisture in the western Gulf. And if this takes a present anticipated course, then it's going to come into Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle. So this has a lot of bearing on what will happen later next week. Now, as we go into the day on Thursday, we're going to see the trough itself move to the east, flatten out this ridge. Fairly benign temperatures, probably looking a little bit warmer than what we've seen early in the week, but we'll be basically in the upper 70s to low 80s. No significant push of cold air. And as we go into late next week, the hurricane starts to make its approach toward Louisiana. It could move west or it could move east, so pay attention. There's going to be a lot of interest in this system as it comes into the Gulf of Mexico. And more importantly, we start to see a trough developing in the western United States, and the question is whether this will come out like it did this last time, up toward the north, or we will see a progression toward the east. So we don't have an 8 to 14 day forecast simply because there's so many uncertainties with these systems. Again, it could be warmer than normal or it could be cooler than normal depending on how this trough and this hurricane interact with the atmosphere. But overall, looks like some decent weather, at least next week, for harvest activity.